Friends, one of the biggest traps our minds fall into is overthinking. It is as if our mind becomes a movie director replaying the same scene over and over, imagining every possible disaster, rehearsing every failure that could ever happen. And the truth is, while we are busy imagining all these scenarios, life is passing by. Opportunities are slipping away, and we are stuck in a cycle of indecision and fear. Overthinking is like a rocking chair. It keeps you busy, but it doesn't take you anywhere. I have met so many people who are intelligent, capable, and talented, yet they remain stagnant, not because they lack skills, but because they are trapped in their own thoughts. They overanalyze every step, asking themselves, what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if it goes wrong? And the what is multiply endlessly until they feel paralyzed, unable to take even the smallest step forward. But here's the beautiful secret. Action is the antidote to negative thinking. When you act, when you take even the tiniest step toward what you want, the fear and doubts begin to dissolve. Action gives your mind a reality check. You see, thoughts are just thoughts. They can make mountains out of molehills. But action turns imagination into experience. And experience, my friends, is far more powerful than imagination. Action gives you lessons that thinking alone can never provide. When you move, you discover that failure is not as frightening as you imagined, that challenges are not as insurmountable as they seemed, and that your mind often exaggerates problems far beyond their reality. Action gives you confidence because confidence is not born in your comfort zone, it is forged in the heat of doing, in the courage of trying, in the perseverance of failing and trying again. Sometimes people wait for the perfect moment to act, thinking that preparation, planning, or the right conditions will save them from mistakes. But here's the truth, perfection is a myth. Life rarely offers the perfect circumstances. If you wait for the right time, you may wait forever. The only way to defeat negative thinking is to confront it with purposeful movement. Start small, start imperfectly, but start. Even the tiniest action, like making a phone call, sending an email, or speaking up in a meeting, sends a signal to your mind that you are in control, not your doubts. Each step builds momentum, and as momentum grows, the noise of negativity gradually fades. Taking action also shifts your energy. When you overthink, energy drains from your body and mind. When you act, energy flows. Your nervous system engages. Your mind focuses. And suddenly, the weight of imagined fears lightens. Action creates a rhythm, a pattern of productivity, and a sense of accomplishment that feeds your soul. And the more you act, the more you realize that your mind is not your master. You are the master of your mind. Through action, you reclaim control, and slowly, negative thinking loses its power, its grip weakens, and you feel liberated from the tyranny of doubt and fear. Friends, one of the most powerful tools to defeat negative thinking is the simple act of questioning your thoughts. Most of the time, our minds run on autopilot. Thoughts appear, and we treat them as truth without ever pausing to examine them. We think, I am not good enough, or this will never work out. And we accept these thoughts as facts. But here's the reality, a thought is not a fact. It is just a story your mind is telling you. And like any story, it can be true, or it can be false, or it can be a distorted version of reality. Yet, because we believe our thoughts without question, we let them control our emotions, our decisions, and ultimately, our lives. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a wild monkey, jumping from branch to branch. Some branches are strong, offering truth and wisdom, but others are weak and shaky, made of fear, doubt, and negativity. If you follow the monkey blindly, you risk falling. But if you stop, observe, and question where the monkey is going, you regain control. Questioning your thoughts is like being a wise observer of your own mind. Ask yourself, is this thought really true? Do I have evidence for this? Am I blowing this out of proportion? When you start asking these questions, you create a space between yourself and your mind, a space where clarity begins to emerge. Many people don't realize that their thoughts are often exaggerated versions of reality. A small mistake at work becomes a disaster in the mind. A minor criticism from a friend becomes a judgment on your entire character. By questioning these thoughts, you begin to see the distortion, and the fear that seemed enormous begins to shrink. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, the shadows that frightened you vanish. You realize that your mind is capable of creating problems that don't even exist, and that you have the power to decide which thoughts deserve your attention. Another important aspect of questioning your thoughts is recognizing patterns. Notice how certain negative thoughts repeat themselves. They often stem from past experiences, insecurities, or assumptions. Once you identify these patterns, you can challenge them consistently. For example, if the thought arises, "I always fail," you can pause and reflect on all the times you succeeded, all the moments you overcame challenges. You see that the mind often generalizes a few events into a permanent truth, and by questioning it, you break that illusion. Questioning your thoughts is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a practice of self-compassion. It allows you to treat yourself with kindness rather than harsh judgment. When you doubt a negative thought, you are telling yourself, "I am not my thoughts, I am the awareness behind them." This awareness is liberating because it reminds you that negativity is optional, that you don't have to accept every story your mind tells. And as you continue this practice, you slowly train your mind to focus on truth, possibilities, and solutions. While the power of negativity diminishes, friends, one of the most transformative practices to overcome negative thinking is learning to reframe and replace your thoughts. Our minds have a natural tendency to focus on problems, mistakes, and fears, and if we allow this habit to continue unchecked, it can dominate our entire outlook on life. But here's the good news. You are not a passive spectator in this process. You have the power to consciously choose how you respond to your thoughts, and that power begins with reframing. Reframing is the art of looking at a situation from a different angle, of asking, is there another way to see this? It is not about denying reality or pretending that difficulties don't exist. It is about shifting perspective so that instead of being trapped by negativity, you are empowered to learn, grow, and move forward. Think about this. When a setback occurs, your mind often whispers, "This is terrible. I can't handle this. Everything is against me." If you allow this thought to dominate, it will feel like the end of the world. But if you pause and ask, what is this situation teaching me? Or how can I use this challenge to become stronger? Suddenly, the narrative changes. You start seeing opportunity where before there was only despair, solutions where before there was only confusion, and hope where before there was only fear. Reframing is like turning on a new light in a dim room. The same space looks completely different, and shadows that seemed threatening are now harmless shapes. Replacing thoughts is the next step. Reframing alone might give temporary relief, but to truly shift your mental landscape, you need to replace negative thoughts with positive, constructive ones. For example, when your mind says, "I always fail," consciously replace it with, "I am learning and improving every day." When the thought arises, "I'm not capable," replace it with, "I have overcome challenges before and I can do it again." This is not about empty affirmations. It is about creating a new habit of thought based on truth, resilience, and possibility. Every time you replace a negative thought with a positive one, you are literally rewiring your brain, training it to respond differently to stress, fear, and doubt. Many people underestimate the subtle power of language. Thoughts are often shaped by the words we use internally. A small change in phrasing can create a monumental shift in emotion and behavior. For instance, instead of thinking, "This is impossible," if you say, "This is difficult, but I can try different ways," your mind becomes solution-oriented rather than defeat-oriented. Over time, this practice builds a mental environment that nurtures confidence, courage, and creativity. Reframing and replacing thoughts is not a one-time exercise. It is a lifelong practice. It requires patience, self-awareness, and persistence. Some days, Negative thoughts may still sneak in, but each time you catch them, question them, and replace them, you strengthen your mental muscles. You begin to see that negativity is not a permanent state, but a habit that can be unlearned, and that your mind, when guided wisely, can become your most powerful ally. Friends, one of the most effective ways to quiet negative thinking is through mindfulness and meditation. Our minds are like busy highways, thoughts racing in every direction, creating traffic jams of worry, fear, and doubt. Most people live their lives in that constant motion, believing that thinking more will solve their problems, when in reality, overthinking only adds fuel to the fire. Mindfulness is the art of pausing, of stepping off the highway for a moment, and observing your thoughts without judgment. It is not about suppressing thoughts or pretending they don't exist. It is about creating a gentle awareness that allows you to see your mind clearly. When you practice mindfulness, you realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And this simple awareness is the first step to freedom from negativity. Meditation takes mindfulness a step further. It trains the mind to focus, to return again and again to the present moment. And in doing so, it creates a space where negative thinking loses its grip. When you meditate, you learn to watch your thoughts as clouds passing across the sky. Some clouds are dark and heavy, but you do not have to hold on to them or let them dictate your actions. You simply acknowledge them and let them drift away. Over time, this practice strengthens your mental muscles, allowing you to respond to challenges with calmness rather than panic, with clarity rather than confusion. Meditation is like watering a garden. Your mind begins to flourish with peace, positivity, and resilience, and the weeds of negativity naturally shrink. Many people struggle with the idea that meditation requires hours of sitting in silence or completely emptying the mind. But true meditation is much simpler. It can be as simple as taking a few conscious breaths, paying attention to the sensations in your body, or quietly observing your surroundings. The key is consistency and awareness. Even a few minutes every day can create profound changes in the way your mind functions. Your brain begins to form new patterns, and you notice that you are less reactive, less anxious, and less controlled by negative thought loops. Mindfulness and meditation also help you recognize triggers the situation, people, or thoughts that consistently give rise to negativity. By noticing these triggers without judgment, you can respond consciously rather than react automatically. For instance, when criticism comes, instead of spiraling into self-doubt, mindfulness allows you to observe your initial reaction, assess its validity, and respond thoughtfully. You learn that your mind is a tool, not a tyrant, and that the quality of your thoughts is directly connected to the quality of your life. In a world filled with constant distractions, mindfulness and meditation offer a sanctuary, a space where you can reconnect with yourself. They teach you that peace and clarity are not found in external circumstances, but within the present moment. By cultivating this inner awareness, you begin to notice that negative thinking is optional, that it is a habit that can be interrupted, questioned, and released, and that true happiness and mental freedom are always available when you train your mind to be fully present. Friends, one of the simplest yet most profound ways to defeat negative thinking is by choosing carefully the environment and people you surround yourself with. Our minds are like sponges. They absorb the energy, the words, and the moods of the world around us. If you spend your time with negativity, criticism, and constant complaining, your mind begins to adopt the same patterns, and before long, your thoughts become clouded with doubt, fear, and pessimism. But if you consciously choose positivity, uplifting people, inspiring books, encouraging conversations, and enriching experiences, your mind starts to mirror that energy. You begin to notice hope where before there was despair, solutions where before there was confusion, and courage where before there was hesitation. It is said that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Think about that for a moment. Who are the people you allow into your mental space? Are they supportive, uplifting, and solution-oriented, or are they constantly bringing you down with complaints, blame, and criticism? Surrounding yourself with positive influences does not mean ignoring reality or avoiding honest feedback, but it does mean prioritizing interactions that nourish your mind rather than drain it. Every conversation, every shared story, every word you absorb contributes to the patterns of your thinking. And consistent exposure to positivity strengthens the neural pathways of optimism and resilience. Books, too, are silent mentors. The thoughts of wise authors, spiritual guides, and inspiring leaders have the power to shape your thinking in ways that few other experiences can. Reading uplifting material daily, even for a few minutes, can slowly transform your inner dialogue. It teaches you new perspectives, provides tools to manage challenges, and reminds you that negativity is not the only story your mind can tell. Similarly, music, art, and nature serve as subtle yet powerful forces that influence your mood and thinking. They remind you that beauty, joy, and hope exist in the world and within yourself. Another crucial element is consciously limiting exposure to negative media and toxic online content. In today's world, news, social media, and constant online chatter can bombard our minds with fear, anger, and judgment. Being selective about what you consume is not avoidance, it is an act of self-respect and mental hygiene. Choosing content that inspires, educates, and motivates keeps your mind fertile for positive thinking. Finally, remember that positivity is contagious. When you surround yourself with uplifting influences, you are not only transforming your own thinking but also creating an environment where others feel encouraged. Kind words, supportive actions, and genuine care create a ripple effect. Your mental space becomes a sanctuary where negativity struggles to survive, and your mind begins to naturally gravitate toward hope, gratitude, and solution. By consciously curating your environment and associations, you provide fertile ground for positive thinking to grow and flourish, while the weeds of negativity gradually lose their hold. One of the biggest reasons negative thinking gains power over us is because we spend so much time overanalyzing, imagining worst-case scenarios, and waiting for the perfect moment to act. The mind is a brilliant servant but a terrible master. When we allow it to run unchecked, it creates mountains out of molehills, magnifying small problems into overwhelming challenges. Many people, despite having immense potential, remain stuck not because they lack talent or resources, but because they are trapped in the labyrinth of their own thoughts. Overthinking keeps us busy yet paralyzed. We feel productive while in reality we are moving nowhere. It is like being on a treadmill. You are exerting energy but not covering any distance. Action is the antidote to this trap. When you take a step, no matter how small, you shift the balance from imagination to reality. Action forces the mind to confront the truth of a situation rather than endlessly speculate about it. You discover that problems are often not as catastrophic as your mind made them appear, and challenges are rarely as insurmountable as fear painted them to be. Every action, even if imperfect, provides feedback. It teaches you lessons that thinking alone cannot. When you act, you gain clarity, confidence, and momentum. Fear begins to lose its grip because it is confronted with evidence, not imagination. Many people wait for the perfect moment or ideal conditions to act, believing that preparation will eliminate all risk. But life rarely provides perfect conditions. Waiting often becomes a subtle form of procrastination, and time slips away silently while we remain immobilized. True courage and freedom from negative thinking come when you decide to start despite uncertainty. Small steps create a rhythm, a habit of action, and gradually the cycle of overthinking is replaced by a cycle of doing, learning, and growing. Each action you take, no matter how minor, sends a message to your mind: I am in charge, not my fears. Action also transforms energy. Overthinking drains vitality and focus. It produces tension, anxiety, and indecision. Action, on the other hand, channels energy into productivity, and purpose. Your nervous system engages, your mind sharpens, and your spirit feels empowered. Even failures, when approached with action, become stepping stones rather than reasons to despair. You learn resilience, adaptability, and problem-solving qualities that negative thinking can never teach. Furthermore, action builds self-trust. Every time you follow through, no matter the outcome, you reinforce the belief that you can handle life's challenges. This self-trust gradually weakens the voice of negativity that tells you you cannot or you will fail. Action reminds you that your mind creates stories, but reality is shaped by your deeds. And as you take more steps, the momentum grows, fear diminishes, and the habit of overthinking loses its dominance over your life.